Thank you for having me back. Last time I was here, I brought with me the information about the greening of the world. And this time, hopefully I will bring two other things that not all of you are familiar with. But this is like coming home to me. I am from Washington State, Alaska. And so this climate is just perfect, and the people are absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much for having me. See if this works. Try it again. Oh, no, that's no good. Go back. Oh, there we go. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, maybe. So is that back? No, that's forward. Hang on. Okay, let's try this. Oh, I'll hold it. There we go. Oh, Go ahead and try it on your end. See if you can start it from scratch.
This is my one.
And then go ahead and try the next one and see if it goes. There we go. Okay. The key thing that I want you to get from my CV is that I am a scientist, not a theorist. And let me define what those two terms mean to me. A theorist is like Einstein. His job was, if you read his words, is to use his imagination. And he was very good at using his imagination. And the theorist's job is then take that imagination and to numericize it into theory. So and that is the first 5 steps of the scientific method. And the scientific method is going to be very important in this presentation because that is what the US now is going to focus on. So as a scientist, my job is to understand the theory, understand the predictions that can be made from the theory, figure out ways to test that theory, and then go after the data, after the official records of nature, to see if those predictions line up with reality. That's my job. So a theorist will spend time, imagination, trying to figure out why, and then building models to try to numericize what they're imagining. What I do all day is download data and do numerical tests. Okay? And let's see if I can do this. So we'll try this. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you probably recognize this guy. He is our fearless leader. And what's nice about him is that he doesn't care about being assassinated. He doesn't care about people attacking his wealth. He just wants to do what's right. And to do that, you have to grow a big pair of these things. So, what his plan is pretty clever. The first thing you have to know is what got you into this mess. For the United States, it all started with a Supreme Court finding where they directed the EPA, you guys need to do a formal scientific study. Then there was an endangerment finding, and then there was Biden trying to sequester Earth's oxygen of life, trying to kill trees. That's what they did with the EPA. And Trump went out and said, no, we are going to go out in the woods. We're going to take a bear trap. We're going to open it up and set it so that they come in, they are nailed. The bears are nailed. And that's what his plan is, and it's very clever. And you might be able to do the same here in Norway.
What is the lysenkoist?
I'm sorry?
What is the lysenkoist? Your last line.
I'm not sure if I saw that. Oh, Lysenko is. Yeah, that's something which Norwegians are very familiar with,
Yes.
I was told. Lysenko is. It's something Americans have never heard of. Now, John and I will have a talk later. I will explain it all to him. Yeah, okay. So the first thing is you got to make sure you cross your T's. You don't want to go to court and get nailed for some administrative error. So Trump is being very careful about making sure all the T's are crossed. So we're going through this process, and what it ends up in is this. Oh, not going to get there, which is we are now open for public comment. He's going out for public comment. Wow, that jumped, didn't it? Yep. Okay. Wow. Let's see, where am I? Draft repeal. Ask for public comment. Let's try to go forward. There we go. So right now, there's 2 comment periods, 2 things that we're commenting on. One is the Endangerment Act. The other is these rules for power plants. I will show you what my submission was.
Just save these cakes.
Oh, I'm stepping on this thing. There we go. The key here is that we go through this process, and the EPA announces repeal of the greenhouse gas endangerment finding, which means CO2 is a pollutant. That gets reversed. And we eliminate the rulings on our power plants. That is how the trap is set, because what will happen immediately is the EPA gets sued. And that's what we're hoping for. Now, you might wonder, why would we want to get sued? Okay. The answer is very obvious when you think about it. Is there freedom of speech in science, in climate science right now? We all know absolutely not. The only place where we can get a fair hearing now in the United States is in court. And the reason is because something the Americans have that the Europeans do not have. We are bound by Federal Rules of Evidence 702. It's also called the Daubert Standard. And it's an interesting rule. 2 sides will come in. There is the UN climate hacks, and there's the people who know what the truth is. The climate hacks will come in with their model data and their strange predictions. And according to the 702, all of that gets tossed away. Models are not allowed. Expert testimony that is contrary to the official records of the United States get thrown out. The only thing allowed is what we bring in, and we will bring in the truth. This is what's actually happening in the United States. Okay? So that's why we're going to court. I did talk to an attorney in Alberta, because Alberta is doing the same thing, and he told me we can do it without FRE 702. He said a good attorney can set the standard in court with the judge and do the same thing. Don't know if that's true, but that's what he said. So there's a period of discovery. They get shocked by what we know, and they won't know how to respond to it because there is no response to it. The EPA will unleash hundreds of tests that we have made of their predictions that are not published, they're not known, they've been kept secret now for 3 years for this very court case. What we will show them is that the UN climate theory is incomplete. It's not wrong, it's incomplete. That statement is my official statement, and I will say that in court if I have to, because they are correct in deserts, on Mars, and in snow. That's it. Globally, they are completely backwards. Okay. We will also expose, for the first time, to our federal government that there are really two primary theories. There is UN climate theory, and there is NASA biospheric theory. NASA biospheric theory correctly predicts hundreds of tests that we've given it to try to predict the climate history of different biospheres on Earth, all around Earth. We can take a biosphere, we know what the history was, we can ask UN climate theory, what's the prediction for that history, and it nails it. So that's what we will expose in court. The proceedings will obviously be covered by news. One side will be crucifying our efforts. Maybe Fox News will be positive to our efforts. The key is that we will have a parallel task where we are releasing the truth to the public. So we win in the court of law, and we win in the court of public opinion. Now, whatever happens in that first trial at the Washington, D.C. district will get appealed to the Supreme Court. And that is actually the critical part of our plan, because we want this action to outlive Trump. Okay? It's got to be permanent. And in the United States, if we win in the Supreme Court, which we will, because we have the facts and they don't, if we win, when we win, that becomes a permanent situation for the United States. The United States is out of the Paris Accords. So that puts China, United States, India, so we're talking more than half of the restoration efforts of the world outside the Paris Accord. So if you thought your contributions, the cost of your contributions to bringing down global temperatures was asinine now, think about how it will be when we cut that in half. Because you'll have absolutely zero effect. It won't be 1 in 1,000, it'll be 1 in 2,000. Okay? So that's what we're doing. And this right here gives you a feel for what we submit. Now, you're about to see something here that may or may not surprise some of you. So the first theory is UN climate theory, and we call it UN climate theory, not IPC or consensus, because those terms don't mean anything to people. People automatically know that UN means politics, so we call it UN climate theory. Okay? It predicts that CO2 causes a list of harms, whereas NASA biospheric theory predicts more CO2 in the air generally causes daily low temperatures to rise. And what that means is that grandma no longer freezes to death in minus 65-degree weather. Kids who are in a car and they slide off a road, an icy road, they no longer freeze to death because of the cold weather. The colds are more tolerable, more bearable, and safer. Daily high temperatures fall. Now, this may be news to some people, but there's a reason why the UN hides high temperatures. They deal in anomalies. What's an anomaly? Anomaly is an average of an average of averages. They hide a lot in anomalies. What we do is we expose what the high temperatures are actually doing around the world. The climate, rising CO2 also stabilizes the climate. Ecosystems on Earth are healthier. Food, water supplies become more secure. And the areas this is critical for us, the areas around natural organic energy power plants, oil, natural gas, and hyper-efficient organic coal show visible improvements of the ecosystems. And I will show you all this information in just a minute here. So that's what we will be showing in court. I cannot show you the details of what we will be showing, but I can give you a glimpse of some of the things that I can show you. So the first one, our first key focus here is net zero is the historic cause of catastrophic heating. Net zero is the historic cause of climate instability. Net zero is the historic cause of higher daytime temperatures. Net zero is the historic cause of ecosystem collapse. Net zero policies use energy documented to kill ecosystems and wildlife. Now, every one of these statements is backed up by dozens, if not hundreds, of scientific method tests that we will expose in court. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the first one, which is net zero is the historic cause of catastrophic warming. Like I say, I can't show you the details, but this is a method that we've had around for a while. And just to let you know, it's simple to understand, I think. I have a video of a fifth grader doing this analysis in full in 10 minutes. And it includes downloading the NASA data, the NOAA data, and then doing the analysis. So let's talk about how it works. You start with a population, and that's what that big circle is. It's a population of something, right? And what it is, it's a population of 1 year changes in CO2. So we take January to January changes of CO2, February to February, March to March. So there's no seasonality effect here going on. It's just annual changes in CO2, month by month, throughout the entire record. We don't cherry pick, we use the entire dang record. Okay? So that's the first thing that happens. The next thing that happens is that we pair with these changes in CO2 what happens. So we have this change in CO2. Am I doing this the right way? Yeah, I am, I think. I have to do it backwards. So here's the CO2 change, okay? And then we pair it with the temperature change that happens right the year after that change in CO2. So it's 1 year of CO2 change followed by 1 year of global temperature change, okay? So it's a very simple ordinal approach to cause effect. And it works because UN climate theory is very specific. There is a linear change in temperatures, and it turns out it happens in about 2 weeks to a month, and that is then amplified over the next 10 years into the total effect. That's kind of what their theory is. A small change gets amplified, okay? So what we're doing is picking up the initial change, probably plus a little bit of amplification, if that even exists. So that's how the theory captures what they're doing. Okay. The next thing we do is we then create 3 subgroups. We have, on the left, we have the net zero subgroup. So net zero means CO2 doesn't change much. Might even go down, right? So the question is well, what happens to global temperatures? According to UN climate theory, what happens is the temperatures are going to stabilize. We're not going to go to that 2-degree limit, and they might even fall, but they should be relatively stable. That's what their theory states. Okay, there is a middle group, which we don't really care about because we want to look at the extremes. And there is a record high restoration of CO2 group. This is where CO2 goes up a lot. And what that means in history is, if you need a number, CO2 goes up about 1% per year. This group is probably 0.7% per year to 1.1% per year. These are the big changes in CO2. So over here, this is where UN climate theory is saying that is what is going to cause the Earth to burn up. Or in the famous quote, it's going to cause the seas to boil. That's the group that causes that. So that's the theory we're testing. And our job as scientists is to find out, well, what is reality? What actually happens, right? Okay, well, let's go ahead and find out. So here's our 3 groups. Let's look at group 1 first. Now, there are 3 sources of possible records. There's remote sensing systems. It's a satellite group that looks at global temperatures from satellites, so it covers everything very well. There is the University of Alabama, Spencer, who has a very good system, doing the same thing. And now NOAA, STAR, also has a record. So to make this work, we need 100% consensus between the results. It better be the same for all 3 groups. If not, we get into a mess. So let's see what happens. Let's take a look at RSS. So they're saying, if you look at the official records of the globe, RSS says that after net zero changes in CO2, temperatures accelerate. That's what that shows. Temperatures really go up. Okay? What does the University of Alabama say? Same thing. We just need one more to say the same now. What does NOAA say? Same thing. All 3 agree that NASA biospheric theory is correct, because that's what they predict, and UN climate theory is wrong because they predict the exact opposite. They get the sign wrong. Their sign is wrong. And that's not what this proves, because this is not the method I have to use as a scientist to prove. But I just wanted to show it to you. It gives you the same result. The results are identical. Let's take a look at group 3. According to the UN, well, maybe it gets worse. Maybe, those aren't so high after all. Maybe it gets worse. Well, let's find out what happens in group 3 when CO2 is restored at high levels. Cooling. Now, you've all seen the temperature record. It goes like this, right? And so what's happening is that when temperatures go up, it's after very small changes in CO2, net zero changes in CO2. When temperatures go down, it's after the biggest changes in CO2. That's in the official record. Okay, let's take a look at ours at University of Alabama. They agree. Let's see if we can go for 6 for 6. Everybody agrees. All of them say the same thing. That's not a consensus. It's verification of the analysis by using 3 different sources of the data. Even though they're different data, the numbers, are correlated, but they're different. They all come to the same conclusion. Okay, let's move on. Now, by the way, this one is big because once you know that CO2 has not caused global warming since March of 1974, and we've nailed it down to the month. All the issues, sea level rise, not caused by CO2 because it's cooling. Health effects, not caused by CO2 because CO2 is cooling. You think about all the things that they use against CO2, all of it goes away because we can prove that UN climate theory is wrong, absolutely wrong, and it's got the opposite sign. Okay. But number 2 is net zero is a historic cause of climate instability. Okay, well, one measure of climate instability is temperatures, right? So let's take a look at the range of temperatures every year, the difference between the highs and the lows. So during some times we have a real instability, and other times we have, fairly stable climate. The highs and lows aren't that far apart. So if we go to net zero, we slide down the CO2 curve. And this is what happens. We go from the stability that we have today, and we go up a curve, not down a curve, but up a curve. And these are the official records from NOAA of the continental United States. The official records of the United States. There's no argument. You can't argue against those records. That is the highest authority. Experts don't matter because we're comparing against the highest authority in climate, our official records, period. And that's what Free 702 does. Okay? Let's try more climate stability. Another measure is precipitation. Okay, so this is looking at precipitation over a solar cycle because precipitation varies with the solar cycle. So we've taken that into account. These are just those little blue dots. Those are solar cycles. And the black boxes are 2 similar solar cycles. But you can put those black boxes anywhere. Basically, it's one full solar cycle. As you know, it's 11 years is a half cycle, so 22 years in each box. Let's see what happens if we go to net zero. CO2 goes down, and we end up right back into the Dust Bowl. Now, what's interesting about that line? See if I can get it to, no. Oh, there we go. That guy right there, bring it across. You notice that it is lower, the average precipitation during that time period is lower than the lowest we have today in the last 22 years. That's how bad it will get if we go to net zero. Okay, the next one, number 3, is net zero is a historic cause of higher daytime temperatures. Now that may or may not be new to you people, may or may not be new to what you know about, and it's because the UN hides the highs and lows with the average of averages. It's hidden. You don't see it, but it's there if you look for it. So what we do is we go through every weather station in the world, and there's a lot of them. We go to ones that have a long historic record, and we pull this data out. And guess what we see? Globally, we see this. Now, this one just happens to be U.S. records. We're only looking at U.S., but obviously we have hundreds of records that will prove the same point. So if we go to net zero, once again, where'd it go? There it is. Okay, let's try it again. Here we go. We go to higher temperatures, and we go back to the times of the Dust Bowl. Okay. Number 4 is net zero is a historic cause of ecosystem collapse. And I'll go through these pretty fast because I brought this this kind of stuff to you guys 2 years ago, and I think you're pretty aware of it. But basically, green means healthy or healthier. Brown is scrub grass. Yellow is sparse grasses. Greenish in between there can be healthier grasslands, maybe farmland that's healthy or unhealthy, depending on where it is. But that's what those colors mean. And so we're looking at what has CO2 done over 24 years. And that was western U.S. This is eastern U.S. We can see brown turns to yellow, brown turns to green, brown turns to yellow, yellow to green, brown to yellow. And then this is our mountain basin area, which is higher elevation land in central United States. And we have brown to yellow, brown to yellow, yellow to green, and yellow to green. So basically a lot of improvement. There are areas that have less, but that's expected. This is Alaska, and in Alaska, I can't find any place that hasn't improved. A lot of that, some of that is due to temperatures. The CO2 knows how to take advantage of a slight temperature change. This is the key graph, and this is what everybody here, everybody in government, and the judge needs to understand. We have had phenomenal greening of the world thanks to a lot of countries producing and restoring CO2 back to the air from where it came to where it belongs. For every 10% more of CO2, we get 10% healthier ecosystems. So we're not healthy. We're not even close to healthy right now. We're at 425 or so ppm. We need to be at least 1,200. Okay, so trees right now outside there, they're surviving, but they're highly attackable by beetles, herbivores, and disease because they're not strong enough to resist. You bring them up to 1,200 ppm, you now have a healthy ecosystem. But we are healthier than where we were during the Little Ice Age. Okay? It's important to know that if we reduce CO2, if we go to net zero, we don't stay at that healthy level. Those trees depend, that new life depends on that higher level of CO2. They die. You come down the curve. That is death of our ecosystems. And for every ecosystem dying, there is a wildlife that grew up depending on that growth, that additional growth, that now starves to death. That is net zero. And that's important to understand. It's also something that I would recommend that you do. A lot of your talks are on the economy. This is going to cost us. This is going to cost us. This is going to cost us. To be quite honest, I think that falls on deaf ears. Because a lot of people are fairly rich. They don't care. If it helps the world, I don't mind a little bit. I don't feel it that bad. I don't know any better, right? But if you start talking about your national parks, the wildlife, how it greens the world, how it helps the ecosystems, that can fall on ears that will now listen. So think about that. This is what will happen if we go to net zero. We start with 2024, and then if we go to net zero, this is what's going to happen. We go from nice green areas across North America to muchly shrunk and poor habitat. In South America, the Amazon is hit hard, along with southeastern parts of South America. The Congo shrivels up, is decimated. Your woodland forests in Eurasia shrunk and harmed. All the progress that China has made, which, by the way, they have made the most progress of any country in the world. You want to guess why? It's because they've been putting in a coal power plant every 3 days. That's why. They've got plenty of CO2 emitting, plenty of power plants emitting atmospheric rivers of life, CO2 and water vapor. Plants are loving it. The next thing we will do is number 5, is net zero uses power that kills ecosystems. And we can prove it. How do we prove this? It's rather interesting. But first, note that the greenest power plant system in the world is hyper-efficient organic coal. The second is natural gas. And why is it not quite as good? It's only because natural gas is more efficient and it produces less CO2, about half as much. The next one is hydro. Congratulations, Norway. You guys are almost all hydro. You are helping your ecosystems. And it's because when you look at, I'll show you in a minute. Atomic is a little bit negative. Why? Because there's a footprint, right? You have to build a building. And when you build a building, you destroy an ecosystem, right? It's small, but we still measure it. We're being fair here. Come on. Okay. Same is true with wind. Every tower that goes up has a cement platform. That's killing ecosystem, right? And there's some other issues. It kills like eagles. And when you kill the eagles, you get a rat and mouse infestation. You know, that's when I was talking to farmers up in Alberta, that's what they were talking about. Then there's solar. Solar is the dirtiest, most destructive source of energy that we have. And the reason is because under solar panels, when you look at the NASA photographs of the systems, it turns to scrub grass, basically. It turns a very weak growing grass. And this is how we know. This is a photograph that NASA MODIS satellites take, and that is of the China area where the Three Gorges Dam was built. But that was before it was built. Oh, whoa, wrong. What did I just do? I went back to zero, didn't I? Yeah, let's go real fast. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. I'm not going to try to restart it. I'll just point. Yeah, there we go, right there. That's where the dam is. So the dam is going to be built here. So that's before it was built. You can see how green stuff was. This is China. It was a green place. But there is some brown over there, you know, scrub grass area. And this is what it looks like 22 years. Well, the dam was built in 2000. I think complete in 2003. And so this is about 20 years, about two decades later. You can see how the greens turn really dark, dense green. The brown is gone, it's now green. Phenomenal improvements. But because we're going under free 702, we can't just use images. We have to numericize our analysis. So NASA provides the numerical equivalents. There it is in 2002, just before the dam was built. This is 2 decades later, and this is the change. Okay? So that's what we do. We numericize it. We give the quantitative, the air terms and everything else goes in here to prove that this type of energy system, which was hydro, helps the environment. This is a really interesting case. This is Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I only came across this because Alberta is thinking about succeeding from Canada. And so I went up there to help. And the reason why I went up there to help was because the Conservative Party voted to remove CO2 from the pollution list and to abandon all net zero targets. But they couldn't do it because the feds were stopping them from doing it. So the only solution that I saw was to have Alberta succeed from Canada. Then they can do what they want, right? And we need countries to do that. We need countries to make the bold stand and to do what's right. Alberta is one of those countries. So, Edmonton, there were three coal power plants. I'm going to use the word coal this time because they were coal, okay? They were not the advanced, hyper-efficient, organic power plants that China builds. So they were pouring out this incredible atmospheric river of life, and they were fertigating 30,000 square kilometers of land. And it was farmland, ranch land, grasslands, and national parkland. That's the improvement. That's the change in ecosystem health on the left from 2001 to 2019. Then the federal government said, hey, I think, let's try a little experiment here. Let's get rid of all that CO2 crap. Let's convert you to a net zero solution. So they did. They started phasing out the coal plants. They phased in their solutions. And that atmospheric river of life was cut in half. And what the farmers saw was, over the next few years, a decrease in the health of their farms, ranch lands, grasslands, and parklands. Huge, huge reduction in the health. And that's what happens. That's direct evidence of what happens. This is another case. This is the biggest hyper-efficient organic power plant in the world, China. Upper right corner, you can see where it started. It was an area that was pretty not that healthy. The little areas of trees, but not very thick, not very dense trees, but mostly a lot of scrubland and poor grassland. Then, in about 2002, they started construction. 2003, it went into production. So about 21 years later, if you look downwind now of that plant, that is a change in the ecosystem. The whole area, and by the way, I've included those little black dots, those are the coal mines. That's where they're extracting the coal from. So this analysis includes all of the coal mines used by that power plant. Average increase to ecosystem health, 55%. Let that sink in for a minute. And ask your representatives, why are you killing the ecosystems? Why? Make them aware of what's happening. That's what we're going to do in court. What you won't see is the details, but basically, I'm working on a book right now which has all those tests organized. Book 1 introduces the 2 theories to the government and the judge. Book 2 is on temperatures and CO2. So it talks about temperatures, talks about the deceitful acts of UN climate theorists who hide details from them. We talk about CO2, why it's so low relative to historic levels, and the temperature CO2 relationship. All of the tests where we test that relationship. Book 3 is on the ecosystems. It'll talk about the ecosystem health of the world, not just the United States. All of these things will talk about the world, not just the United States. And it'll give examples of a green energy index for various plants around the world. It'll show solar, which has huge losses in ecosystems. It'll show the natural gas that has huge gains. That'll all be detailed in that part. And then book 4 is on national security. We'll talk about climate, water security, food, and forage, because we need to talk about wildlife, the impact on wildlife. So food and forage and health. And hopefully, your team here might help with section 10, which is energy. So national security on energy.